Good evening. My name is Nigel Sandy, and I'm a Community Relations Specialist for Metrolinx, representing the Scarborough Subway Extension. I'd like to welcome everyone for joining this personalized virtual open house for the surrounding community near McCowan Rd and Sheppard Avenue East. Yesterday, we had our first virtual engagement of 2022 to provide the greater community with project updates. Tonight, we plan to share some of the specifics related to Headwall construction happening directly in your neighborhood. Just like last night's event, we've included a call-in option to listen and ask questions. In your registration email, you received a link to join a Zoom meeting, and please raise your hand to ask your question directly to the project panel. There's going to be more about those instructions a little bit shortly in my introduction. And I must say, there is no place like home, and being from Scarborough, it's my pleasure to be the moderator again for this evening's event. As moderator, it's my job to keep the event on time, to ensure your questions are answered as best as possible, and to make sure as many questions are answered as possible. I want to thank you again for joining us here this evening. And just support an important note, this event is closed captioned. To use the feature, enable it on your video player. Next slide, please. Let us take a moment to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. We are all treaty people. Many of us have come here as settlers and immigrants, in this generations or generations past. Metrolinx declares its commitment to building meaningful relationships with Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge the historic and continued impacts of colonialization and the need to work towards meaningful reconciliation with the original caretakers of this land. We acknowledge that Metrolinx operates on the lands covered by 20 treaties and that we have a responsibility to recognize and value the rights of Indigenous nations and peoples and conduct business in a manner that is built on the foundation of trust, respect, and collaboration. Next slide, please. What you're seeing on the screen is our agenda for tonight's session, and we plan to provide an overview of the current status of what's happening with the project, along with everything related to Headwalls, including how we plan to minimize the impacts to your community. Before jumping into the content, I did want to go through a few house rules for the session. So tonight's presentation will be focused mainly on the upcoming Headwall construction happening in your community. Last night's virtual open house, where we provided updates on the entire project, was recorded and is available online. Please visit us at www.metrolinx.com/Scarborough Subway. Once you're on the website, please click on the Get Involved tab. From the Engage website under Live Meetings, a list of all the previous sessions will be available for you to watch again. To support the engagement for this evening's session, we do encourage you to ask questions related to the construction of the headwalls and the subway tunnels. The panelists that I will introduce a bit later, they are specialized and have expertise in that area, so it would help with the engagement for tonight. We do also acknowledge that Metrolinx has many transit projects under construction and other potential projects going through the assessment phase. To ensure that there are, any unrelated questions do receive acknowledgement and an answer, our Contact Us slide near the end will provide a few different ways to communicate with the Community Relations team, and from there we will forward your feedback to the applicable department. We also plan to host this evening's event for an hour if necessary, and it has been designed to allow for as many opportunities for questions and feedback as possible. As you'll see, there is a mechanism to type in a question, which also allows other participants that are here today to vote on a question. It's often that great minds do think alike, and we see repetition with some of the questions that people would like to ask and have answered. So we just ask that you scroll through the list of questions that are there, and if you see something that covers your area, just add a like so we know that it's something we should talk about and discuss. During the Q&A period, we will begin by spending the first portion just answering some of those pre-submitted written questions, and then we'll spend another portion answering the call-in questions from the Zoom link you received by email. And please note the written questions will be answered based on votes, while call-in questions will be taken on a first-come, first-come basis. We're going to aim to keep each question and subsequent answer to 3 minutes, allowing for as many questions as possible. Now again, if you've just tuned in for the event, it is being closed captioned. Use this feature by enabling it on your video player. I would now like to introduce our project panel. Next slide, please. If you were able to tune into yesterday evening's event, joining us again, we have Georgina Collymore. She is the Manager of Community Engagement on the Subway project, and she'll be taking your live questions from the Zoom room. Another familiar face from last night's session, we have Ross Bain. He's our Senior Project Manager from the construction side, and he'll be supporting us with answering questions on the panel. And last but not least, supporting us from our construction partner, we have Leonardo Trevino. He is the head of the technical department at Strawbag. So with the introductions over, Leo, I'm going to pass it to you to just give folks a bit of a background on Strawbag as a company, and then you can go through the next steps with the upcoming construction.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Hi, everyone. So thank you for the introduction, Nigel. Again, my name is Leonardo Trevino, and I'm the head of the technical department for Strawbag. Strawbag is an Austrian-based company and a global lead in underground construction, in particular tunneling. Strawbag has had projects in over 60 countries and has plenty of experience on these type of projects of infrastructure. Myself, I worked in a different project in Toronto, the Eglinton Crosstown, and I was also a technical manager in that project. So I'm relatively familiar with the work in Toronto. With Strawbag, I've been working a few months, and I've learned quite a bit of this of my new company, and we are thrilled to bring this project to execution during the coming couple of years. Next slide, please. I'm going to go over overview of the project, and then we'll continue to details about the first structure that we are going to execute outside the launch shaft along the alignment. So the project consists of roughly 7 kilometers of a subway extension from Kennedy Station on the south to Sheppard Station on the north, where currently most activities are taking place. There are other 2 stations along the alignment, Scarborough Center and Lawrence Station. At the tunnel for this new subway will commence to be drilled from Sheppard on the north end, and for that the launching shaft is being excavated, and we are preparing the tunnel boring machine, which is going to be launched from that site. The tunnel boring machine, TBM, is currently being assembled on site, and it will be launched shortly later this year. At the same time, in addition to the tunnel, we are going to be executing what we call headwalls, which are structures underground along the alignment. Next slide, please. We're seeing here a timeline of the execution of the project. We are in early 2022, and as you can see, this year and also next year are going to be fairly busy. During 2021, we focus on the execution of the launch shaft and excavation. That will continue throughout this year, and the launch shaft will be active with a lot of activities due to the extraction of the material that is going to be excavated from the tunnel, as well as the insertion or the loading of the tunnel segments, which is concrete lined for the tunnel. The tunnel boring has arrived on site, as I mentioned, and will be launched later this year. and will continue throughout 2022, 2023, as well as 2024, when it's scheduled to arrive at near Kennedy Station. Throughout later this year, fairly shortly, we'll start with the execution of the headwalls that I mentioned, and the extraction shaft, which is again close to Kennedy Station, will also be started to be executed this year to receive the TBM machine in 2024, where we finalize our project. Next slide, please. You can see a couple of current photos. On the left, we see the current status of the launch shaft. So far, roughly about, we have excavated up to about 30 meters down, up to close to the elevation where the tunnel will start. On the right-hand side, you can see the process of assembling of the tunnel boring machine. The tunnel boring machine was shipped from Germany in parts and is being reassembled prior to launching next to the launch shaft. Next slide, please. So what is a headwall? I mentioned it before, but I didn't define it. Headwalls are essentially walls, which are structures to be built underground, and they are necessary for the later execution of both stations as well as emergency exit buildings. At different locations along the alignment, besides the stations, there are these emergency exit buildings, which are relatively smaller structures, but nonetheless buildings, and therefore they need certain support of the ground in order to be built. The headwalls are going to be executed by drilling into the soil and putting concrete into it as well as steel, and they will create essentially a wall that will permit later excavation of the soil between the headwalls and will work by maintaining the stability of the ground. They are going to be executed prior to the passing of the TBM of the tunnel, and therefore the tunnel will essentially make a hole through these headwalls. Next slide, please. What you can see here is more or less, again, a slightly more detailed timeline of the execution of the headwalls. We start from the north. We start with Sheppard Station, South Headwall, which is essentially towards the south of the launch shaft, and is what is going to be covered in more detail later in this presentation. Then we have emergency exit building number 7, and then we have the headwalls of Scarborough Center Station, then EB6, EB5, Lawrence, which is at the hospital, a future station, and then emergency exit buildings numbers 1 through 4, or 4 to 1, from north to south. Generally, these are done from north to south, because also that's the direction of drilling of the tunnel. Next, please. So passing to the first headwall in the alignment, this is a Sheppard East South Headwall, which is right next to 1705 McCowan Rd. And this headwall is starting to be built within only a week from now. By March 15th, we will be initiating mobilization to to start the operations and preparations for the construction of this headwall. The headwall construction itself, including preparations, will take about a total of about 4 months, and again, it's the first headwall that's going to be built along the alignment. Next slide, please. What we see in the pictures here are examples of the machines that will be used to drill the headwalls. The machines are called drill rigs, and they essentially are big machines, very tall, that make holes in the ground up to great depths. These headwalls are, the depth of the headwalls that we're going to be executing are up to between 30, 40, and up to even 50 meters underground. Next slide, please. Some machine in operation on the left side we can see, and on the right hand side, perhaps an important aspect of trying to minimize the impact to the community. There is a truck, a watering truck that is spraying the road in order to reduce pollution from our construction activities. Next slide, please. Here we have a schematic view of how the drilling operation occurs. So first, we have the drill rig installed on site, starts drilling, removes the soil, then a concrete truck comes to pour concrete inside the hole that was drilled, and finally the casing that was inserted during the drilling process is removed, and what remains in the ground is essentially the concrete, as well as in some cases steel. The construction activities include, of course, setting up and securing the site. All the sites will be restored to original condition, and through our construction we are going to be monitoring and controlling noise and vibration in order to reduce the impacts to the community. Next, please. What we see here is a plan view of the location of the first head wall. What is shown in brown is a neighbor building to our head wall. The head wall in this figure is shown up down and has a length of about 15 meters. One of the main mitigations that we need to execute as part of these works is noise mitigation. In this particular case, because we are executing a head wall, which is a relatively noisy activity right next to a residence building, we will be installing a noise barrier, a temporary noise barrier, in this case a 40 feet in height noise barrier, in order to reduce the impact to the neighbors of our construction activity. Next slide, please. What we see in these pictures is similar, are examples of noise barriers. And these are similar to what we are going to install between our construction activities and the neighbor building. Next, please.
Leo,
I believe Nigel. Thank you.
Yes, yes, that was a great presentation, Leo. Thank you so much for running through that overview. I think it helps a lot of folks at this portion of our city, because we haven't had much public transit, infrastructure development in this area. So it's going to be a lot of new stuff for them to see, and I think you talking about this in simple terms for everyone to understand was really helpful. So thank you for doing that. And just to cover the content that's on this slide about engagement, all of those points that you see are things that we plan to do and we have already done to engage with the community and update them on what's to come with the activity. The last piece from the options that you see on this slide that we haven't done yet and we plan to do in the coming weeks are some communications through social media on Twitter. So once the construction activity actually starts, we will be trying to use that platform as another way to be creative and communicate with the community to explain some of the next steps that are happening. Next slide, please. So on this slide, it has the different ways you can communicate with our community relations team to ask questions and follow up on the latest updates with the project. What we do recommend is to sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter is a key opportunity to stay on top with the latest information that we have. You'll also see that we have shown our project phone number, our website, and our email address as a contact for you to get in touch with us. I'm going to ask that we keep this contact us slide on the screen while we transition into the question and answer period. So folks, if there's a question that's unrelated to this project and it's not something that the specialists on this panel or myself are able to answer, we are dedicated to finding those answers and getting back in touch with you. So I'll start with some of the pre-submitted questions that were given to us, and I know we understand that tonight's session is supposed to be focused on headwall construction and the tunneling activity, but we do want to acknowledge some of the other questions that came in. So I'll start with the few here. So as if now the 129 McCowan North, 130 Middlefield, 131 Nugget, 169 Huntington Wood, 939 Finch Express all go to STC in 2030. Will they go to Sheppard Station, or will they go to Sheppard and STC as a branch, just like the bus goes to STC via Sheppard East Station? So to answer that question, all of these stations are being designed to include local TTC bus connections. And those actual routes and the bus schedules will ultimately be dependent on, the TTC's future service plans, as they are the operator for those transit lines. So I think, right now it's a bit early to confirm the actual routes that will be at those stations, but closer to the in-service date, the TTC will be communicating, scheduling and the different routes that will be in and out of those different stations. Another pre-submitted question that we had was the Sheppard Station bus terminal plan is shown to be a northwest portion. Is it possible to build it as a north position instead of a northwest position? So to answer that question as well, with the project planning that has taken place, unfortunately at this stage, the station location and the facilities won't be able to change. Again, they have done extensive planning so far with the TTC and the city over the last few years to find specifics that will work with the plan that we are looking to produce and provide to the subway options that are available and the commuter options that are available. Everything still is under review and nothing is concrete, but to move the station location drastically, that might be difficult for our project team to accommodate, just with everything that has been planned and already in the works of construction so far. Another question that was pre-submitted and provided, will there be an online map that will track the latest location of Diggy Stardust? So that's actually a great question, great suggestion, and thank you for bringing that forward. So we are going to look into seeing if there is some sort of technology available for us to track Diggy Stardust as it tunnels under McCowan Rd, as tunneling is expected to begin this summer. So I'd say at this point, stay tuned. It's something we are looking into, and again, great suggestion. Once we do have some updates on if that's something that's possible, we'll definitely inform the community so you guys can be a part of the journey as it tunnels down McCowan Rd. Take a second to see if we have any other pre-submitted questions here. So another question that I see that came in, will there be one entrance on Sheppard or at the Sheppard station? So the visuals that were shown, it says in the station diagrams released on the 7th, which was our virtual open house yesterday, the other two stations are shown as having two entrances, while the Sheppard station is shown to only have one entrance. So what I would say with the drawings that we shared at yesterday's event, and you may have also seen our blog post where we shared some of those visuals to highlight the station location so the community can have more awareness. Those are just preliminary drawings just to keep the community informed on the locations and get a sense for where they will be. It's still under review, and those drawings are subject to change. So with the amount of entrances that you are seeing, we will try our best to have an update as soon as possible, but once our construction partner for this portion of the contract does come on board later this summer, we hope to have some updated visuals to share what those next phases of the station design looks like. It's going to take another look here through some of the questions to see if anything else was brought in. So I think there's another question here, and Ross, I might throw it to you just to give me a hand. It looks like it's related to some of our mitigations and I guess what impacts will be happening in the community. So they're asking, is there impact with McCowan and the Milner intersection? So is there any impact to the Milner intersection and the 132 that goes through that area? So I think for us, because we aren't the operators of the TTC, we wouldn't have any clarity right at this moment to say where the route is actually going, but we can probably speak to just talking about what types of impacts might be at McCowan and Milner intersection. So Ross, I'll throw it to you. We might have no impacts, but maybe you can clarify for everyone on the call.
Yeah, hi, just Nigel, is my sound okay? I know we had an issue yesterday.
You're perfect, crystal clear. It's a lot better. Thank you.
Great. Hi everyone. Ross Bain. I'm with the Metrolinx on the construction team side. Milner it actually falls right in between what will be two construction areas. There will be a construction area where Leonardo just described south of Sheppard, and there will be another construction area just north of Highway 401. And those are for headwall constructions. At Milner, we are not expected to have any impact on the number of lanes at the intersection, so it will appear very much as it does today. Kind of leads into the next question, which you may be thinking is will there be impacts elsewhere or at the two locations I mentioned? And the answer is yes. There will be some lane reductions. So McCowan in this area goes from being upwards of 4 lanes closer to the highway, and then ultimately restricts down to 2 as it goes through Sheppard. So there will be instances where the number of lanes is reduced, but certainly at all times north-south traffic will be fully possible on McCowan, and any east-west movements will also be maintained.
Perfect. Thank you, Ross. And as some of this activity, we get closer to the activity and we have a more defined schedule in place, we will be delivering construction notices just to keep folks updated with any, impacts to traffic and lanes and the amount of, time it may take to get through certain places. We'll definitely be in touch just to get everybody informed with the next steps. I think we have a couple of questions waiting for us in the Zoom room. So I'm going to jump to Gina. Gina, are you ready to pass over a couple of questions?
Yeah, I am. Thanks, Nigel. So our first question is actually a couple of questions in one. So I'll just ask them one after the other. When will tunneling begin, and how far below ground will it be? Will I feel it? So I think perhaps Ross, would you be able to answer that one?
Yeah, I'll help with the schedule piece, and then Leo can describe the path of the machine is not. It doesn't stay at a constant depth through the alignment. There's a number of reasons for that. I'll let Leonardo explain. But currently, we are tracking towards having the machine starting in this summer, August, more specifically, is when the machine will be starting, and that will certainly be a very public event. We people get very excited when these machines start up, and for good reason. So what the residents and people who are in the community see today, northeast of Sheppard and McCowan, you'll see the large. That's the main shield. That's the front of the machine. You can see that above the hoarding. That will be lowered into the shaft that we've been building in April. But then there's still a number of preparatory activities that need to happen before the what we call the tunnel drive, which is it actually advancing before that starts later this summer. But maybe, Leonardo, if you could just explain sort of in general the path that the machine will follow. And, it certainly comes up a bit closer because, as people who know the community know, the ground isn't flat either. There are a few creeks and valleys that we cross. So there's a major highway we go under. So there's a number of reasons why the path doesn't stay completely level.
Yes, for sure. So first of all, the date of launching the tunnel machine is currently early or mid-July this year. The machine is being launched at a depth of about 32 meters of the invert of the machine. But the machine is 12 meters in diameter, so when the bottom is at 32 meters, for example, the top will be only 20 meters below our feet. Now, as Ross mentioned, the depth will vary, and in general, I think it will vary between the top of the machine the depth will vary probably between 15 and 25 meters typically. Maybe occasionally a little deeper or a little shallower, but that's more or less the range. As for whether or not we will be able to fill it from surface, that depends a lot on the type of ground exactly that is under one's feet at the time the machine is passing below. But generally speaking, I believe the answer is yes. These machines normally, at least if at nighttime, if everything is quiet, I think it's in our experience, people should be able to somewhat feel it. It's not a strong thrilling feeling, but it's a fairly big machine. So also, and they will be digging continuously. So for a certain period, you might be able, you would be able to feel it, at least if you are on top of it. Now, if you are, let's say, 50 meters off from the tunnel axis, most likely not. That would be already too far away. So there is a period, because the machine advances continuously, there is a period of time in which probably for a few hours at any location, the machine might be felt by a person.
Ross, Leonardo, thank you so much for that great explanation. I'm learning a lot as you both talk and explain, some of the features and what to expect. So folks, everyone on the line, please take advantage of, our project panel. They are very knowledgeable on the tunneling work and some of the things you can expect with the construction. So if you have, just questions about what is going to happen and what types of things you're going to see, this is your chance to talk and ask the questions, because these are the right folks to give you the answer. I'm going to jump back to Gina. I think you have a couple of questions waiting in this room. So Gina, I'm going to flip back to you.
Thanks again, Nigel. So the next question kind of leads again back to Leo, except this one is about noise. So one of the residents from 1705 McCowan is asking that they're working from home right now. So how loud will it be? How loud will the noise be during the day? Do you have an idea of that?
Leo, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I was in mute.
That's okay.
It's a little tricky to describe the noise, but I will try. The machines, first of all, the machines we are using are unfortunately quite noisy, which is the main reason why we are using a fairly robust noise barrier. Now, the noise barrier is supposed to reduce significantly the noise levels. We're talking machines. I'm not sure if this is too technical, but the machines these machines have typically a noise level of in the order of 80 to 85 decibels, and the noise barrier should take that down at least 10 to 15 decibels down. We are talking maybe 70 decibels that will be felt by the residents. So, to be honest, I believe the residents will be able to hear the machines, but we are aiming to hopefully be a rather muffled noise as opposed to something extremely disturbing to the residents. That's what we're hoping for. That's what we are aiming for, sorry.
Thank you, Leo. And just to add on to, the explanation, this is a part of why we're having this engagement this evening. It's to be honest about, some of the impacts that do happen with construction, and we are trying to minimize them as best as possible. And with that example of someone who's working from home, we're not in a position to say what the best option is for each individual to do, but with us giving this communication to you, it's maybe an opportunity to see if there's a relative or someone that you can stay with to, have your meetings and conduct your daily work that you'd have to do on a daily basis if, the noise might be unbearable. But Leo, just to add, typically how long does it take for each head wall to be constructed? Because maybe that will give folks a bit of an idea of, the amount of time that they can expect some of this noise to happen in their community.
So the headwall itself, in particular the headwall at Sheppard, will take roughly about 60 days, and about half of those days will be more noisy than the other half. The reason why I say that is because the drilling operation is the one that is the most noisy, whereas the pouring concrete and other operations is not so much. So because of the sequence in which we go drilling and then filling with concrete and etc., there is typically one day more noisy and the next day less noisy. And in total is about 2 months. So there you go, about 30 days of noisier work in total over a period of 2 months.
Thank you for that, Leonardo. And I think Ross wanted to add a few comments, maybe just to talk about that point in the question we received.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor it. I want to make sure others have a chance to ask some questions too. But Daniel, if we can just go back to slide 14, I just want to show that image again that Leonardo presented. Yeah, no, the one with the image, that one. Yes, how we build it. Sorry. Back one. There we are. Thanks. What I wanted to just make sure that the audience understands is that these are piles. So this is a long cylindrical vertical type construction into the ground, but we're being very conscious to use the word drilled piles. This is not even though we say we're driving it into the ground, this isn't the big hammer type operation where you're going to hear bang 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 all day. Or while the operation is happening, it's a different kind of noise, and what I also want to mention is that starting last late May and running into September of this year, of 21, we completed 318 piles at the McCowan and Sheppard launch shaft site. So this work has happened in the community in the last 6 months, and so it's an operation that our contractor is very familiar with. It's something that they are learning how to to fit into a community like this and to do the work. Minimizing disruption. The only other point I'll mention is that this is something that as Metrolinx we are monitoring very closely. Our contractor, as do all of our contractors on our projects, has very strict noise limits that they need to work within, and those noise limits are different for a weekday versus a weekday evening versus a weekend day versus a weekend evening. So there's levels, and we have monitoring equipment set up around the job to ensure that those limits are achieved. Thanks, Nigel.
No, that was perfect, Ross, and you just gave me a reminder about how we work, and we're actually required to follow certain specifications in terms of noise, and we do have mitigation measures in place to monitor and see where there are opportunities to help the community if there are readings that are above what we are able to allow under the parameters that we work with. So Ross, thank you for that reminder. I'm going to jump back to Gina, who's in the Zoom room, and I think we have a couple more questions that are related to construction.
Yes, we do. So the next one is from Shafi. The question is, will head walls behind the 1705 McCowan condo have a station and an exit? Will there be a lot of noise for the residents of 1705? How about the entrance and exit for the 1701, 1703, 1705 McCowan building owners? Will we be able to use the road? So I gather this question is mostly about the head wall adjacent to 1705 McCowan and whether or not it will have a station and an exit. I can
address that. Generally speaking, the residents of these buildings will not have a significant impact to access the properties. Even the residents at 1705, even though we are right next to 1705, we are not really going to close the access to the building at any point. There will be an impact. I think the most significant impact to that area is that a portion of a sidewalk is going to be closed, a portion of a private sidewalk that goes from McCowan to 1705 is going to be closed because we are going to be occupying the space, unfortunately, for our construction laydown area. And then a little further to the north, the parking lot of 1711 McCowan is also going to be partially impacted, and there is going to be one driveway access to 1711 McCowan that is going to be blocked for a few weeks. Actually, for a couple of months, I believe. I think it's, sorry, a month and a half, 45 days that is going to be blocked. But that's it. The other buildings, 1701, 1703, are farther to the south, if I'm not mistaken, and they are not going to be impacted.
Thank you, Leonardo. That was perfect. Gina, I think we still have a couple more questions in the Zoom, right?
Yes, we do, actually. So the next question is, you said that tunneling will start in the summer. How long will the tunneling take? So I think they're asking,
2 years.
When will it end? Like, how many years?
Roughly 2 years.
Great.
2 years. So
The
maybe
next
a year and a
question,
half.
again, also kind of head wall related. Will the head walls... Oops, sorry. Can you guys hear me still?
You know what, Gina? The audio is coming in and out. So maybe what I'll ask you to do is give me that question on the side, and I'll read it out for everyone in the meeting. But I'll jump to another question that I think was posted on the website. Leonardo, you might have covered this before, but I'll probably ask you to start, and then maybe Ross, you can fill in any gaps if there is any gaps. I know Leo, he's not the technical head for no reason. He's really thorough with his explanation. So the question is, what to expect for emergency exit buildings? I know station designs haven't been completed yet, but any info on what emergency exit buildings might look like and how big they are?
I wish I could answer the question. How big they are, but I can say I believe they are going to have a footprint of approximately 15 to 20 or maybe 25 meters long. But that's all I know, to be honest. I don't have any further information about the emergency exit buildings, unfortunately.
No, thank you for that. That was good enough. And with some of these questions that are posted on the website, we will be providing answers in the upcoming days. So I'll be reaching out to some of the people that are more closer to that work who can give us some finalized and more, clear answers to help give you a response you're looking for. I'm going to jump back to a question that was provided in the Zoom room. And Ross, I think you'll be able to answer this one. Is the route going to be 100% underground? Underground or above ground? That's the exact question.
It's a simple one. This Line 2 extension, or the extension of the existing TTC Line 2 subway is fully underground from Kennedy Station to the terminus station that we're building at Sheppard and McCowan, fully underground.
Perfect. Thank you, Ross. So the next question that's coming in, it looks like I think I'll take a first shot at answering this one. So I noticed on the corner of 1711 Sheppard, there is a large space that has a squared blocked off. Is that reserved for future development related to this project? So I think Leonardo started talking about some of the work that was happening near 1711 Sheppard, I believe. I think with the parking lot having some modifications to support the headwall construction. But please correct me if I was wrong, Leonardo. Is there anything that we have planned at 1711 Sheppard?
If I'm not mistaken, most likely the blocked out area that is being asked about is farther north on Sheppard and McCowan, right at the corner. But that area is not ours. That's a private area. And I understand there might be a future development in that area, but that has nothing to do with us. The area that I was talking about before, that we are going to block one driveway for 1711, is probably 50 meters south of the intersection. So it's a different area, actually.
Thank you, Leonardo. And the panel that we have here tonight is solely focused on, the work that's happening with the Scarborough Subway Extension. So we will make an effort to try to answer, all of these questions. So please, don't hesitate to either call our project phone number or use our email address, and, we will do our due diligence to figure out if this is related to any Metrolinx project, and we'll get you the information just to answer that question. I think we have another question that came from the Zoom room, and I'll throw it to Ross, maybe to give us a bit of an answer. So what exactly is an emergency exit building? Is it temporary structures for the duration of the project, or is this something that's permanent?
So the emergency exit buildings are for the final construction, so the final subway. Simply put, if there's an emergency situation when the subway is in operation and passengers need to exit the subway and get to surface, so people can imagine any number of situations that would require that. We don't want them having to travel all the way to the next station, because there's a certain amount of distance between Sheppard and the town center and Lawrence and Kennedy. So there are 8 emergency exit buildings that will be part of this project. They will provide, quite as the name suggests, an emergency stairwell to get from track level to grade. So they certainly are permanent and will be part of the final build.
That was perfect. Thank you, Ross. Another question. I think, Leonardo, I'm going to be coming to you on this one. You mentioned noise barriers are going to, are they going to be permanent, and where exactly are they going?
So the noise barrier that I mentioned is not permanent. It's only temporary for the duration of our heavy construction at right next to 1705 McCowan. There will be other noise barriers along the alignment as we build headwalls, but those are not fully defined yet in terms of extent or height. Only the first one at 1705 is defined as 40 feet tall, that's 12.2 meters approximately. So it's about the same height of the building we are protecting. And again, it's only temporary for a couple of months.
Thank you, Leonardo. And that kind of ties back with, going through the timeline. It's roughly about 60 days. And because they do impact some, noise disruption, that's the purpose of the noise barrier being created, to mitigate the disturbance that it does cause in the community. But once that activity is completed after the 60-day window, that structure will be removed, and it won't be a permanent placement or fixture in your community. So I think we have another question here that was waiting in the Zoom room. And Ross, I'll probably be coming to you on this one. So the tunnel boring machine is a similar kind of machine that has been used in the building, the Eurotunnel. Will the tunnel be parallel to the road? And if so, how will it pass through the 401? What is the total cost of the project? So, you know what, Ross, before you answer, I'll answer that last portion about the total cost of the project. I believe, the anticipated capital cost of the entire project is $5.5 billion. And then, Ross, I'll throw it back to you to kind of go through that TBM portion of the question.
Yeah, no, and the individual asking the question is certainly right. This is a similar technology to what was used in the Eurotunnel. I'm not sure if that's referring to that under the English Channel. That was a number of years ago, but closer to home, these have been used more recently for the Eglinton Crosstown, the Spadina Subway Extension, and similar technologies will be used for the other Metrolinx subway program projects for Yonge North, Ontario Line, and the Eglinton West Crosstown Extension. They will all be using TBM technology. The question about alignment, yes, in general, the TBM will follow a path under the center of McCowan, then Danforth, and then Eglinton. So it's basically going to run in the center of the road. But as I don't need to tell the audience, that the road tends to take some rather aggressive jogs at times, and subways don't. So the turns end up being more gradual. So there are times when the alignment will shift from one side of the road to the other. And I'm thinking especially of when we make the turn at coming to go west onto Eglinton. We will deviate from being directly into the center of the road. For the Highway 401 crossing specifically, this is where Leonardo answered earlier about the depth. So the depth, the TBM has the ability to steer in all directions, up, down, left, right. So when we come to the highway, we will simply go under it with sufficient clearance to not affect the highway. And that's something that we've been working very closely with our friends at the MTO to make sure that they're satisfied that we're maintaining sufficient distance from the highway and from the bridge in particular is something we had to work through with them.
If I may, at the intersection with the 401, not only the tunnel goes deeper, but also it goes to the side of McCowan, because McCowan at that portion is essentially a bridge. And so the tunnel cannot go under a bridge directly because it would affect it structurally. So it goes off to the east of McCowan on that portion.
Yeah, thanks, Leonardo.
Yes, Leonardo and Ross, thank you so much for being our experts on the panel this evening. It looks like we don't have any other questions waiting in the Zoom room, so we are going to wrap up the event. As promised, we will be providing answers to all of the questions that are on the Engage website in the coming days. And if you haven't already, please sign up for the Scarborough Subway Extension newsletter. It's one of the best ways to stay informed on the project and be notified of any upcoming public events. We hope that this session was informative and you had an opportunity to ask your questions. But as always, we do have our contact information here, so you can reach out and ask any question as they come up once the construction commences. So good night and take care until next time. Thank you.